The smell of motor oil and metal shaving still clung to my uniform as I pulled into the driveway. 12 hours at the shop had me running on fumes, and all I wanted was to see my pride and joy, my 1967 Camaro SS. I'd spent 18 months turning it from a rusted wreck into perfection. I hit the garage remote. The door creaked open, revealing chrome bright enough to blind you and paint so deep it looked endless. That's when everything changed. "Someone call 911. He's stealing my car." My HOA president, Brenda, came storming across the lawn like she was leading a charge. Phone in hand, she yelled, "Yes, there's a man stealing my car right now. Send everyone." Police sirens were already screaming in the distance. She hadn't even spoken to me before making the call. I was standing in my own driveway, holding my own keys, staring at my own car, and about to be arrested for stealing it. What would you do if your neighbor used the police against you on your own property? Drop a flag emoji and tell me where you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. My name's Marcus. I'm a third-generation mechanic. My grandfather taught my dad taught me, and we've been keeping cars alive in this town for 60 years. When my divorce was finalized last spring, after my ex decided grease under my nails wasn't her kind of sexy, I used what was left to buy a small house in Willowbrook Estates. The realtor promised it was a quiet middle-class neighborhood, where lawns were perfect, mailboxes matched, and people minded their own business. That turned out to be a lie. The Camaro wasn't a midlife crisis. I found her at an estate sale, nothing but rust and dreams for $30 at the scrapyard. But I saw what she could become. After paying $200, she was mine. Every weekend. For 18 months, I rebuilt her. New 350 small block, rebuilt turbo 400 transmission, full suspension overhaul. The paint job alone took 4 months of sanding, priming, and polishing until that hugger orange finish gleamed like fire. I documented everything. Photos, receipts, the works. The smell of fresh primer and warm steel became my Saturday morning cologne. Coffee went cold on the bench while I lost myself in the rhythm of restoration. Then came Brenda Wilson, the living definition of an HOA nightmare. She moved in 5 years ago and crowned herself queen of the neighborhood, a real estate agent, with a white BMW, manicured nails, gravity-defying hair, and a smile cold enough to freeze coolant. She'd been HOA president for 3 years, unopposed because nobody else wanted the job. Her hobby was weaponizing the rulebook. Trash cans left out for 12 extra minutes, fence posts an eighth of an inch off spec, grass allegedly too tall. She fined people for it all. 2 weeks before the garage incident, she stomped over while I was bleeding brake lines. "Excuse me," she said. "There's a noise ordinance. No power tools after 6. I wiped my hands, staying calm. "Actually, city rules allow hobby work until 9. I can show you the document." Her smile vanished. "We'll see about that. This kind of industrial activity hurts property values." She said, industrial activity, like I was cooking something illegal instead of restoring American history. Then came her monthly pool party, her backyard filled with neighbors pretending to like each other, sipping mimosas. Through the walls, I heard her laugh. "Oh, that's my new Camaro. Just bought it from a dealer in Phoenix, $45,000, totally worth it." I froze. She was showing off photos of my car. My wrench hit the floor. She'd found pictures online of the same model and convinced everyone it was hers. That afternoon, I took the Camaro out for a test drive. The 350's growl rolled through the streets like thunder, pure muscle and heart. When I returned, Brenda stood in her driveway, arms crossed, face red, staring at my car like she wanted to erase me from the neighborhood. That night, she must have convinced herself I'd stolen her car. By morning, she'd turned into something worse, a neighbor with a cause. When 2 patrol cars screeched into my driveway that evening, lights blazing, I knew my calm weekend was over. 4 officers jumped out like it was a bank robbery. Officer Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran with patient eyes, approached calmly. His partner, a younger officer named Morgan, stood beside him with a notebook ready. "Evening, sir," Rodriguez said. "We got a report of a stolen vehicle at this address." I almost laughed. "A stolen vehicle? This is my car, at my house. That's like saying I stole my own fridge." Brenda appeared behind them, gripping her phone like a lifeline. That's him. That's the thief. I just bought that Camaro for $45,000 yesterday. I took a slow breath, tasting exhaust and frustration. My father's words echoed in my head. Documentation beats desperation. Officers, I can prove ownership, I said, pulling up my phone. I showed them the full album, photos of every stage of the rebuild, every bolt, every coat of paint. Rodriguez scrolled through, eyebrows rising as he saw the transformation, from rust bucket to masterpiece. That's some real craftsmanship, he said quietly. You do this for a living? Family business, I replied, steady but proud. My grandfather would have smacked me with a wrench if I'd ever done sloppy work. Meanwhile, Brenda looked like she was having a full mental breakdown. He's lying. Look at these, she screamed, shoving a handful of printed photos at the officers, clearly pulled from some dealer's website 5 minutes before she called 911. I wired the money yesterday. They were shipping it this week. Officer Chen glanced through her papers with the enthusiasm of someone reading tax returns. Generic stock photos, no VIN numbers, no paperwork, just glossy images that could have been any orange Camaro built between 1967 and last year. Ma'am, he asked patiently, do you have a bill of sale, transfer receipt, or dealer contact information? Brenda's face turned as red as a stoplight. It's all being processed. The dealer said paperwork takes time with classic cars. While she scrambled for excuses, I dug through my garage like an archaeologist uncovering artifacts. Out came my 3-ring binder, organized by date, containing every record of my car's life story. Here's my DMV registration, I said, handing Rodriguez the proof of ownership. 18 months old. My name, my address, matching VIN. His flashlight swept across the paper. Everything matched. Numbers, dates, signatures, all perfect. And here's my insurance, I added, flipping to the next sleeve. Progressive required photos of the rebuild for coverage. Every stage, every part documented. Chen jotted notes while Brenda's explanations grew wilder. She was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater, and I was almost starting to feel sorry for her. Almost. He forged everything, she shouted. He's probably running some identity theft operation. That was my cue to drop the hammer. From the back of the binder, I pulled a piece of yellow legal paper. Edges soft from time, handwriting shaky but proud. 1967 Chevrolet Camaro, condition as is. Extensive rust damage, $3,200 cash. Buyer assumes all responsibility. Signed, Eleanor Hutchinson estate sale. Rodriguez studied the paper like he'd just found buried treasure. That's the original bill of sale, I explained. Eleanor sold her late husband's project cars. Sweetest lady you could ever meet. Made me promise to bring it back once it was done. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear sprinklers 3 houses down. Chen closed his notebook like a judge dropping the gavel. Ma'am, this gentleman has verified ownership documentation covering over a year. Your photos appear to be generic internet images. Rodriguez's tone shifted, firm, professional, final. Ma'am, filing a false police report is a misdemeanor in this state. My father was a prosecutor for 30 years. I've seen people serve real time for knowingly giving false information. The color drained from Brenda's face like someone pulled the plug. There must be some mistake, she stammered. The stress of car shopping, you know how confusing these things can be. But her eyes told another story. As the officers left, I caught her watching me from her window, cold and calculating. This wasn't over. It was only round 1. Monday morning hit like a diesel backfire. Half awake and still in yesterday's clothes, I shuffled to the mailbox with my coffee. And there it was. An official HOA violation notice, tucked in like a venomous snake. Notice of covenant violation, unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. Apparently my work van, a perfectly normal Ford Transit with Rodriguez Family Auto on the side, wasn't up to Brenda's community standards. $200 fine, 48 hours to comply. Her signature at the bottom looked like she'd just signed my death warrant. Through the kitchen window, I watched her power walk past my driveway, glaring at my van like it was a personal insult. Her morning jog now included 17 passes by my house. I counted. Here's something most homeowners don't realize. HOA covenants are legal contracts, not just suggestions from bored suburban monarchs. My divorce lawyer once told me, everything leaves a paper trail, and paper trails don't lie. So I spent my lunch break at the county courthouse, digging through records like an investigator with a wrench. And what I found? Pure gold. My van was purchased in 2017, 3 years before Willowbrook's commercial vehicle restrictions took effect in 2020. Vehicles owned before rule changes are grandfathered in by law. Brenda had no legal ground to stand on. That night, I wrote a response that would have made my old man proud. Calm, detailed, bulletproof. I attached every supporting document and hand-delivered it to the HOA office. The receptionist's eyes widened as she read it, probably realizing just how much trouble her boss had stirred up. "Oh dear," she whispered, like she was watching a slow-motion crash. "Mrs. Wilson won't be happy about this." She was right. By Wednesday, my mailbox had turned into Brenda's personal complaint box. 3 more violation notices arrived. Alleged oil stains on my driveway. I power wash weekly. Excessive automotive odors from my garage, apparently. The scent of WD-40 is offensive now. And noise violations during perfectly legal hours. She was carpet bombing me with paperwork, hoping anything would stick. So I made my next smart move. I upgraded my defense. 4 high-definition security cameras went up, each one recording to cloud storage. Night vision sharp enough to catch a mosquito landing on my mailbox. The footage revealed Brenda's new hobby, fence line surveillance. Every morning she paced our shared property line, snapping photos, measuring distances with a collapsible yardstick that probably cost more than my grocery bill. She'd turned neighbor watching into an Olympic sport. Then came Thursday night, the nuclear option. An emergency HOA board meeting to address my ongoing violations. The notice arrived at 4 p.m. for a 7 p.m. meeting, barely legal, designed to keep me from preparing a defense. I showed up at the community center expecting a circus. Instead, I found 3 women sitting at a conference table like they were planning a bake sale. Brenda at the head, her nervous sidekick Clara apologizing for breathing, and Janet, who seemed to exist solely to nod in agreement. "Where's the rest of the board?" I asked, taking a seat across from their tribunal. Brenda's smile could have preserved meat for the winter. "This will be sufficient for tonight's business," she said. Brenda opened the meeting with her newest decree. "We're implementing an emergency ban on all automotive repair activities, effective immediately. Past violations carry a $500 fine." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the HOA bylaws I'd memorized earlier that afternoon. Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is a tactical nuclear weapon. "Fascinating theory," I said. "But Section 4.3 requires 7 days' notice for any voting matters." My thumb slid further down the screen. "And Section 4.7 mandates a quorum of 5 board members for an official vote." I looked around the nearly empty room. I count 3 people. This meeting has all the legal authority of a neighborhood book club. Clara's face turned the color of overcooked shrimp. "Well, this is just preliminary discussion." Section 2.9, I interrupted, states that invalid meetings create personal liability for individual board members. I'd done my homework. 3 hours of legal research and a pot of strong coffee had prepared me for this exact moment. Brenda's composure shattered like safety glass. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" she hissed. "Coming into our neighborhood with your people and your activities." The venom in her voice could have stripped paint. But my father had taught me something about bullies. Stay calm, stick to facts, and let them hang themselves with their own rope. "I think I'm just a homeowner who reads contracts before signing them," I replied. Novel concept, I know. Later, neighbor Tom appeared in my driveway, apologetic and slightly embarrassed. "Most of us think she's completely lost it," he confided. "Want to grab coffee tomorrow? I think it's time we talked." Friday morning delivered a 7:15 a.m. doorbell symphony. Dave Martinez from City Code Enforcement stood on my porch, clipboard in hand and the 1,000-yard stare of a man who's refereed one too many neighbor wars. "Sorry to bother you this early, Mr. Rodriguez," he said. "Anonymous complaint about unlicensed commercial auto repair. Mind if I take a look?" I led him into my garage, my weekend sanctuary. Morning light glinted off polished chrome. The smell of metal polish and clean motor oil hung in the air like expensive aftershave. Every tool had its designated home on pegboard walls that would make a Swiss watchmaker weep with envy. Dave's tension vanished instantly. "Jesus," he muttered. "This is cleaner than the shop where I get my truck serviced." He ran a finger along my workbench. "Not a speck of dust. What do you do for work?" he asked. "Family mechanic business." "This is pure hobby. Weekends only, no customers." He nodded, scribbling notes while admiring my engine hoist. "Anonymous complainant claimed you were running an illegal business. I see zero evidence of commercial activity, customer vehicles, or cash transactions. You're absolutely golden." As Dave climbed into his city truck, he paused with one foot on the running board. "Off the record," he said. "I've been to this neighborhood 4 times this month. Same voice every time, different complaints. Lady needs a hobby that doesn't involve my department." Brenda's next masterstroke arrived via certified mail, a formal complaint to my homeowner's insurance company. She'd contacted Progressive directly, claiming my garage activities created a fire hazard threatening neighboring properties. The letter demanded immediate inspection or policy cancellation. When my insurance agent, Bill, showed up Tuesday afternoon, I braced for bureaucratic hell. Instead, I found a kindred spirit who spent the first 10 minutes admiring my Camaro's engine bay like it was the Sistine Chapel. "Someone's definitely trying to screw with you," he said, signing his inspection report with a flourish. "Your fire safety setup exceeds commercial standards. Half these neighborhood garages are death traps with their propane tanks and extension cord Christmas trees," Bill's company responded, by sending Brenda a cease and desist letter that basically translated to, "Stop filing false insurance claims or we'll prosecute you for fraud." But Brenda had discovered the nuclear weapon of modern warfare: social media. The Willowbrook Neighborhood Watch Facebook group appeared overnight like a digital cancer. Brenda's inaugural post featured photos of my work van and garage, accompanied by prose that could make a dog whistle manufacturer proud. "Just concerned about maintaining our beautiful community standards," she wrote, with enough artificial sweetness to cause diabetes. "Some recent activities might be more appropriate in industrial zones, don't you think?" Tom showed me the screenshots over coffee, his face redder than a fire engine. 23 people joined in the first hour. It's like watching a dumpster fire, but you can't look away. The comment section became a gladiator arena. Several neighbors jumped to my defense, sharing their own Brenda horror stories. Others lurked silently, probably calculating the social cost of opposing the HOA's reigning dictator. Brenda's digital empire imploded when she started deleting critical comments. Nothing ignites suburban fury like censorship. Soon the group fractured into warring factions, debating everything from free speech to property values. Sunday morning escalated things to my driveway. 24 roofing nails scattered like metallic confetti, positioned to puncture unwary tires. My security cameras captured the 2 a.m. perpetrator, a hooded figure moving with the nervous energy of someone committing their first felony. The footage was grainy, but the distinctive quick-step march looked familiar. Brenda always walked like she was perpetually late for an argument. Officer Morgan treated my police report with the seriousness it deserved, especially when I explained the escalating harassment timeline. "Classic intimidation pattern," he said, photographing the evidence. "Document everything. These cases simmer for months, then explode into arrests very quickly." While reviewing camera footage, I spotted something that made my coffee go cold. Brenda's morning routine now included detailed reconnaissance missions, walking our property line with her phone, measuring distances, photographing angles. This wasn't random harassment. It was military-grade surveillance for some larger operation. Wednesday's mail delivered the nuclear option, an anonymous letter on generic printer paper. "Your kind doesn't belong here. Leave voluntarily or face escalating consequences. No signature, no return address." But the paper stock matched Brenda's HOA notices perfectly. My divorce lawyer had taught me enough about document analysis to recognize identical watermarks and printer signatures. Detective Martinez, assigned to my growing case file, examined the letter with professional interest. "Anonymous threatening correspondence qualifies for hate crime prosecution under both state and federal statutes," she explained. "We're building a substantial criminal case against your neighbor." That evening, Tom's coffee shop coalition expanded to 6 households, each armed with their own Brenda documentation. Mike, the lawyer, had been fined for unauthorized mailbox fonts. Sarah, the accountant, got cited for planting flowers without architectural committee approval. Time for coordinated resistance, Tom declared, stirring sugar with revolutionary fervor. Individual complaints often get ignored, but united action creates results. As we traded stories and legal strategies, I realized Brenda had accidentally built her own worst nightmare. A unified neighborhood with real grievances and professional expertise. The hunter had become the hunted. By Friday afternoon, I was deep in the county courthouse basement, a fluorescent-lit maze that smelled like stale coffee and old paperwork. The records clerk, who looked like she'd been filing documents since the Carter administration, pointed me toward Research Room B with the enthusiasm of someone giving directions to a public restroom. HOA financial records are in the corporate filings, she rasped, sliding a dusty box toward me. Good luck making sense of that mess. 3 hours later, surrounded by towers of disorganized paperwork, I finally understood why Brenda guarded these files like nuclear launch codes. Willowbrook's HOA financial statements were a masterclass in creative. Embezzlement $15,000 to B&B Property Solutions for undefined consulting. $8,500 to Brenda's Best Gardens for landscaping that never happened. $12,000 to Wilson and Associates for legal services, conveniently starting right as Brenda's divorce began. The kicker? All three companies listed the same address, 1247 Maple Lane, Brenda's house. A quick check of the state business registry confirmed what I suspected. B&B Property Solutions, sole proprietor Brenda Wilson, established 6 months after her divorce. Brenda's Best Gardens dissolved last year after doing 0 projects. Wilson and Associates, her ex-husband's law firm, the perfect cover for funneling untraceable income. Our HOA president had been looting the neighborhood fund like a suburban crime boss, roughly $78,000, redirected into her personal legal defense over 2 years. But what truly made my hands shake wasn't just the theft. It was the pattern behind it. Cross-referencing complaint dates with home sales, I uncovered Brenda's real operation. She targeted homeowners with relentless harassment until they sold below market value, then used her real estate license to broker quick deals with investor friends. She pocketed double commissions and kickbacks. 3 families had already fled Willowbrook in the past year under her pressure. The Hendersons sold $40,000 under value after endless noise citations over their son's basketball hoop. The Patels moved out after weekly violations accusing them of inappropriate cooking odors. My case fit her scheme perfectly. Single homeowner, no local family, and a prime property worth $380,000. The ideal setup for manipulation. Then came the twist that stopped me cold. Buried in a stack of foreclosure notices, I found Brenda's own house in default. $23,000 in unpaid HOA dues, to her own association, back taxes, attorney fees, credit cards, the works. Her foreclosure hearing was just 4 weeks away. The irony hit like a lightning bolt. The woman who fined others for weeds and mailbox paint hadn't paid her own dues in over a year. Everything clicked into focus. Her erratic behavior, false reports, desperate aggression. Brenda wasn't just power-hungry. She was cornered. Facing financial collapse, I was her last hope for a big payout before the bank took everything. The Camaro incident gave her the perfect excuse to speed up her plan, photocopied everything, hands shaking slightly as the machine hummed through page after page of evidence. $17 for the privilege of exposing my neighbor's crimes. Best money I'd ever spent. Walking back to my truck, I called Tom. "You sitting down?" I asked. Because what I just found changes everything. The war had shifted from defense to offense, and Brenda had no clue the trap was already closing in. Saturday morning turned. Tom's garage into mission control for Operation Takedown Karen. The air was thick with coffee, motor oil, and the scent of long-awaited justice. Our ragtag crew of suburban rebels gathered around an old folding table. Tom had assembled what could only be called the Avengers of Neighborhood Warfare. Sarah Morgan, forensic accountant who could spot fraud like a bloodhound after bacon. Mike Patterson, semi-retired corporate lawyer who lived for destroying liars in depositions. Linda Martinez, high school teacher with organizational skills sharp enough for NASA. And Carlos Mendez, contractor who knew every building code loophole in 3 counties. "Good grief," Sarah muttered. spreading Brenda's financials like a CSI case file. This woman's embezzlement has all the subtlety of a brick through a window. Mike adjusted his glasses, eyes narrowing. 78 grand in fraud, a clear harassment pattern. Prosecutors dream of cases this clean. Linda was already color-coding a massive timeline on poster board, mapping harassment to property sales like a seasoned investigator. See the pattern? Target vulnerable families, escalate violations, and just when they break, boom, investor buyers appear. Carlos leaned back with a low whistle. And she's paying her divorce lawyer with HOA money? That's not clever, that's stupid. Over 2 hours and countless cups of coffee, our plan took shape. Operation Documentation Fortress. Carlos would outfit the neighborhood with cameras, sensors, and cloud backups. If she so much as looks at your mailbox, he said, we'll have it in courtroom quality 4K. Operation Paper Trail. Linda created standardized incident reports. Times, witnesses, photos. Police numbers. Airtight enough to survive a nuclear blast. Operation Legal Annihilation. Sarah and Mike would handle the financial and legal takedown. Every fraudulent dollar, Mike explained, creates personal liability. She's not just stealing, she's dismantling her own legal protection. And with annual board elections only weeks away, timing couldn't have been better. Tom, Sarah, and Mike agreed to run for the 3 open HOA board positions, shifting control from Brenda's loyal puppets to our reform coalition. Criminal complaint gets filed Tuesday, Mike said, neatly organizing police reports with the calm precision of a man solving a crossword. Embezzlement, harassment, false reports, and she's looking at a full felony platter. Operation Public Exposure was next. Linda, our teacher-turned-propaganda expert, spearheaded a neighborhood information campaign. She designed professional flyers explaining the theft, coordinated social media posts, and ensured Brenda's crimes would soon be discussed at every dinner table in Willowbrook. The numbers alone were enough to spark outrage. $78,000 stolen from 40 households. That meant every family had been overcharged nearly $2,000. Once the local moms realized their HOA president had been quietly draining their pockets, a suburban revolution was guaranteed. Carlos added the cherry on top, the media angle. HOA president caught stealing funds while harassing neighbors, he said. Channel 7 will eat this up. Our psychological strategy was simple but devastating. Let Brenda think she was winning while we built a legal cage around her. I'd keep my routines normal, act unaware, and let her desperation create more evidence against her. Classic rope-a-dope, Mike explained, grinning like a veteran boxer. Let her throw wild punches while we record every miss. The timing lined up perfectly. Brenda's foreclosure hearing in 3 weeks, audit results due in 2, board elections in 4. Every disaster timed like a symphony of self-destruction. Sarah had already contacted Channel 7's investigative bulldog, Janet Mills, a reporter famous for exposing suburban corruption. HOA fraud stories pull big ratings, Sarah said. She's practically begging to cover this one. Mike found the final nail for Brenda's professional coffin. Her real estate license renewal was due in 6 weeks, and any fraud conviction meant permanent revocation. Financial ruin plus career destruction, he said with a satisfied smirk. That's total annihilation. As our small war council packed up, Tom clapped me on the shoulder. 2 months ago, you were the quiet mechanic who kept to yourself. Now you're leading a neighborhood rebellion. I glanced at our evidence board. Timelines, photos, statements. The transformation from isolated target to resistance leader felt surreal. Like waking up with wings you never knew you had. Sometimes bullies pick the wrong victim, I said, and Brenda's about to learn that the hard way. The trap was set, loaded, and waiting for her to step into it. The following Monday brought the sound of panic. Brenda's shrill voice echoed across the neighborhood at 7 a.m., cutting through the morning air like a fire alarm having a meltdown. She paced her driveway, phone in hand, shouting into it as if sheer volume could stop the inevitable. I need an emergency board meeting tonight. Something's happening, and I need legal protection. Through my kitchen window, I watched her flailing attempt to rally her crumbling support. Clara shuffled over reluctantly, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Janet followed minutes later, but even from a distance, I could see the doubt creeping into both their faces. By noon, an emergency assessment notice appeared in every mailbox. $500 per household for legal defense against outside agitators, destabilizing community governance. According to Brenda's letter, I was supposedly threatening to sue the entire HOA, and she demanded immediate payment to hire attorneys. What she didn't know was that Tom had attended her pitiful 3-person meeting, parked nearby with a digital recorder capturing every word. "They're investigating our finances." Brenda's voice crackled through the speaker when Tom played it back later. "I don't know how much they know, but we need to control the story before this gets out." Clara's nervous voice barely rose above a whisper. "Brenda, maybe we should just—" "No," Brenda snapped. "I built this community and I'm not letting them destroy it. If I have to leave town, fine, but I'm not going down alone." The audio was crystal clear, courtroom quality. Mike's grin when he heard it could have powered the entire street. Wednesday night brought Brenda's first real act of desperation and stupidity. My security cameras caught her sneaking around my yard at 2:47 a.m., dressed head to toe in black like a wannabe spy. She carried a small toolkit, knife, spray paint, and motor oil containers, her sad attempt to stage environmental violations. The best part? She spent 15 full minutes setting up fake evidence directly under my motion-activated floodlight, giving us perfect footage of her face, her car, and every ridiculous move. By Thursday morning, the city's code inspector arrived, and the entire scheme collapsed instantly. The motor oil containers still had Home Depot stickers attached, and the inspector calmly explained, "Ma'am, filing false environmental reports is a federal offense. I'm forwarding this to our fraud investigation unit." Brenda's expression reportedly went from red to ghost white in seconds. Her meltdown exploded online that same afternoon. The Willowbrook Neighborhood Watch Facebook group became her personal soapbox, a stream of rants about outsiders and threats to community values. By Friday at 2 a.m., she posted her masterpiece of self-destruction. "Some people don't understand that communities have standards. When certain elements move in and change the character of our neighborhood, decent people have to act." Screenshot saved. Forwarded to our legal team. Saturday brought the final straw: bribery. Carlos was installing cameras at Linda's house when Brenda approached, waving an envelope stuffed with cash. "I know he's paying you to lie about me," she hissed. $2,000 if you forget about those cameras." Carlos, calm as ever, kept working, his phone secretly recording. "Ma'am, I'm just helping my neighbors protect their property. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer." "I don't need lawyers," she snapped. "I need this neighborhood back under control. That man has turned everyone against me." Her desperation was thick enough to taste. Brenda was unraveling, and every panicked move only built a stronger case against her. By Sunday night, she crossed the final line, filing yet another false police report claiming I'd threatened her with a weapon. It was pure fiction, but exactly what we'd expected. The walls were closing in, and Brenda Wilson was about to face the consequences of every lie she'd ever told. The responding officers found me in my garage, covered in grease, fixing a neighbor's transmission with 3 witnesses nearby. Officer Morgan's patience had officially run out. "Ma'am, this is your 4th false report in 2 weeks. You're looking at charges." That was the moment everything started to unravel for Brenda. On Monday, the preliminary audit results arrived through Sarah's encrypted email, and they were worse than we'd imagined. Brenda hadn't just stolen $78,000, she'd been quietly overcharging every household for fake services and pocketing the extra cash. Total theft, $96,000 over 30 months. Our self-appointed neighborhood queen wasn't just desperate. She was a career criminal who had finally run out of victims and time. The end game was coming fast, and Brenda was doing most of the work herself. Then came Tuesday night's break-in, a disaster so ridiculous it could have won a comedy award. At 2:33 a.m., while normal people dreamed of vacations and winning lottery numbers, Brenda was starring in her own late-night crime special. At the HOA management office, the security footage looked like a rejected scene from a heist movie, written by someone who'd never actually committed a crime. There she was, our suburban Napoleon, fumbling with a stolen master key, moving with the stealth of a rhinoceros in tap shoes. She shoved papers into an industrial shredder like she was making the world's most expensive confetti. The silent alarm went off faster than her common sense had left her. Officer Rodriguez arrived to find Brenda elbow-deep in shredded evidence, surrounded by paper snow that used to be financial records. "Ma'am, step away from the computer and put your hands where I can see them," he ordered, probably wondering how his quiet Tuesday shift had turned into a live episode of Criminal Fails 101. Brenda's response was pure drama. "You don't understand. They're destroying everything I built." This community was perfect before they came. The smell of overheated electronics and panic filled the office as she was cuffed and read her rights. Watching the footage later, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Until I remembered the false police reports and the slashed tires. Bail was set at $25,000, which for Brenda might as well have been $25 million. Her finances were already sinking faster than the Titanic after the iceberg. She spent 3 days in county lockup, probably the first time in her adult life she'd been somewhere without a manager to complain to. While Brenda was enjoying government hospitality, Clara made the move that sealed her fate forever. She visited the jail with a digital recorder hidden in her purse, and what she captured was pure gold for the prosecution. "I need your help." "Clara." Brenda's voice cracked through the phone speaker as we listened later. The desperation was thick enough to taste. "There's money in my garage behind the water heater. Cash, we can both disappear before this gets worse." Clara hesitated. "Brenda, I can't." $50,000, Brenda begged. "Help me and we start over somewhere new. They don't know us." Mike let out a low whistle when he heard it. Admissions of theft, conspiracy, and flight risk. All in one recording. This woman just confessed to everything while sitting in jail. It's like she's trying to win an award for criminal stupidity. By Thursday evening, our emergency neighborhood meeting was packed wall to wall. The air buzzed with anger and the smell of overbrewed coffee strong enough to strip paint. 43 households showed up, and the collective outrage could have powered Las Vegas for a week. Tom presented Sarah's final audit results with the confidence of someone revealing a royal flush. The numbers were staggering. Brenda hadn't just stolen $78,000. She'd operated a full-blown criminal enterprise, fake vendor payments, inflated service contracts, and kickbacks totaling $112,000 over 3 years. "Every single family here has been systematically robbed," Tom announced, earning a mix of gasps and colorful language that would make sailors blush. Average theft per household, $2,800. The vote of no confidence was unanimous, except for Janet, who abstained while looking like she wanted to tunnel straight to Canada. 33 households demanded Brenda's immediate removal, criminal prosecution, and full restitution with interest. Friday morning brought the media circus Brenda had always wanted, just not as the star she imagined. Channel 7's van rolled in at dawn, followed by competing crews eager for the story of the year. Reporter Janet Mills interviewed neighbors like she'd just struck Emmy Gold. That night's newscast opened with HOA president arrested in massive embezzlement scheme, complete with Brenda's mugshot and the infamous footage of her document-shredding performance, art. My interview took every ounce of restraint my divorce had taught me. "This isn't about revenge or payback," I told the camera. "It's about holding people accountable when they abuse positions of trust." By the next morning, the story had exploded online, trending nationwide as people shared their own HOA horror stories. Brenda's real estate career collapsed overnight. Her license was suspended, clients filed complaints, and her reputation became more toxic than nuclear waste. The foreclosure auction was uneventful. Her home sold for $280,000, $70,000 below market value, since criminal charges and news vans don't exactly attract bidders. Then came the 3 a.m. Facebook confession, Brenda's last public meltdown. Sobbing into her phone, mascara streaked down her face, she wailed, "I was just trying to protect our community." Sometimes good people have to make hard decisions. The comments section lit up like a digital firing squad. Neighbors aired every grievance she'd ever caused. The video vanished within hours, but screenshots last forever. And just like that, our neighborhood tyrant's reign was officially over. "This isn't about revenge or getting even," I told the camera carefully. "It's about holding people accountable when they abuse positions of trust." The story exploded across social media faster than gossip at a high school reunion. Horror was trending nationwide within hours, with thousands sharing their own nightmare experiences and celebrating our neighborhood's David versus Goliath victory. Brenda's real estate career collapsed spectacularly. Her brokerage suspended her license immediately, and past clients began filing complaints about suspicious transactions. Within days, her reputation became more toxic than industrial waste. The foreclosure auction came and went quietly. Her house sold for $280,000, $70,000 below market value, since criminal charges and news vans tend to scare off buyers. Then came Saturday's 3 a.m. Facebook confession, Brenda's final act of self-destruction. Sobbing into her phone camera, mascara streaked down her cheeks like abstract art, she blamed everyone but herself for the consequences of her crimes. "I was just trying to protect our community," she cried. Sometimes good people have to make hard decisions. The comment section lit up like a digital firing squad. Neighbors finally unleashed years of anger, frustration, and buried stories of harassment. The video vanished within hours, but screenshots last forever. Our suburban tyrant's reign of terror was officially over. The sentencing hearing on a crisp Thursday morning felt like the season finale of the most satisfying reality show ever made. The courthouse parking lot looked like a neighborhood reunion, with over 40 residents carpooling as if heading to the biggest event of their lives. Inside, Judge Patricia Hernandez's courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Every bench was filled with faces I'd come to know as allies over the past 3 months. The air carried the sharp scent of courthouse coffee and the electric tension of long-awaited justice. Brenda sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit that clashed beautifully with her fake blonde highlights. She looked like a deflated balloon animal beside her overworked public defender. The woman who once ruled our streets with clipboard arrogance now resembled a suburban scarecrow that had lost a fight with a tornado. Channel 7's cameras were locked in for maximum drama. Janet Mills had front row seats, calling it the most satisfying HOA story of the decade. When Judge Hernandez called for victim impact statements, I was the first to stand. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might break free from my chest. 3 months ago, I was just a quiet mechanic who minded his own business. Today, I was speaking for an entire community. "Your Honor," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "This case started when a woman called 911 because I opened my own garage door. But it was never really about a car. It was about power, control, and what happens when someone decides they can terrorize their neighbors without consequence. I spoke about the harassment, the fake police reports, and the systematic theft that had drained every family in our community. But mostly, I talked about fear, the way Brenda had turned authority into a weapon that made people afraid in their own homes. She didn't just steal our money," I continued, locking eyes with Brenda, who refused to look up. "She stole our peace of mind, our sense of safety, our belief that neighbors should look out for one another, not prey on each other." Tom spoke next, his postal worker's voice carrying the calm authority of someone who'd seen both the best and worst sides of human nature. Sarah followed, laying out the financial evidence with forensic precision. Then Linda shared how standing up together had become a lesson in courage for their children, a story of community strength instead of victimhood. When it was Brenda's turn, her attorney delivered a performance worthy of bad community theater, blaming mental health struggles, divorce trauma, and financial stress. Every excuse in the book except the one that mattered, taking responsibility for her crimes. "My client deeply regrets her actions," the public defender pleaded. "She's willing to make full restitution and undergo counseling." Then Brenda stood to speak, and what came out was pure audacity dressed up as remorse. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she sobbed, dabbing her eyes with tissues that had seen more action than a NASCAR pit crew. "This community meant everything to me. I was only trying to maintain standards, to protect property values. Sometimes people don't understand that leadership requires difficult decisions." The collective eye roll that followed was practically audible. Even her own attorney looked like he wanted to disappear under the defense table. Judge Hernandez had clearly heard enough. "Ms. Wilson," she began, her tone sharp and unwavering. "In 30 years on this bench, I have rarely seen such a deliberate abuse of trust, combined with harassment and criminal intimidation." She paused, studying Brenda like someone examining an unpleasant specimen under glass. "You held a position of responsibility and used it to steal from the very people who elected you. You targeted a homeowner with false police reports that could have ended in tragedy. You destroyed evidence, tried to flee the state, and still refused to take responsibility for your actions." The judge's voice grew heavier with each word. "This court sentences you to 4 years in state prison. Restitution of $112,000 plus court costs, and 5 years of supervised probation upon release. The gavel came down like thunder. The courtroom erupted in applause that Judge Hernandez didn't bother to silence. 40 households getting justice doesn't sound like ordinary clapping. It's deeper, more powerful, like the universe correcting itself. As Brenda was led away in shackles, she finally turned to face us. Her eyes weren't filled with remorse or apology, only hatred for the people who dared to hold her accountable. Outside, the courthouse steps felt like a victory stage. Cameras flashed, neighbors cheered, and a reporter pushed a microphone toward me. "Mr. Rodriguez, what would you tell other homeowners facing HOA abuse?" I thought about everything we'd endured. The fear, the evidence, the endless meetings, and the unity that brought us here. Document everything. Build community. Truth wins, I said. 6 simple words that carried the weight of 3 months of struggle and triumph. By evening, that quote was everywhere, shared, reposted, and repeated as a rallying cry for HOA reform across the country. But standing there in the sunlight, surrounded by neighbors who had become family through adversity, I realized something far deeper. We hadn't just defeated a bully. We'd discovered what true community meant, what a real community can accomplish when good people choose to stand together. The American dream was never just about individual success. It was about neighbors protecting neighbors, justice serving everyone equally, and ordinary people becoming extraordinary when it truly mattered. 6 months after Brenda's sentencing, Willowbrook Estates had transformed from a suburban police state into a real community. The smell of Saturday morning barbecues and the laughter of kids playing outside had replaced the tension that once hung over our streets like fog. Our new HOA board, Tom as president, Sarah as treasurer, and Mike handling legal affairs, introduced radical ideas like transparency and common sense. Monthly financial reports were posted online. Meetings were actually announced in advance, and violation notices now required photographic proof and reasonable deadlines. The community garden Brenda once tried to shut down had become the heart of the neighborhood. Linda organized the planting schedule with military precision, and seeing neighbors who'd barely spoken before now trading tomato seedlings felt better than any therapy session. Ironically, property values had risen by 15% since Brenda's removal. Turns out buyers prefer neighborhoods known for unity and accountability, not corruption and harassment. Who could have guessed? Restitution payments arrived throughout the year like small miracles. Every household received their stolen money back with interest. Watching families pay off debts and plan long-delayed vacations felt like real economic justice. Brenda's new reality was far less glamorous. According to Clara, who still spoke to her out of guilt and curiosity, our former neighborhood tyrant now worked in the prison laundry for 60 cents an hour, sharing a cell with someone convicted of armed robbery. Meanwhile, our story had taken on a life of its own. A group of film students from State University turned it into a documentary called Garage Door Justice, an American story. It won a regional film festival and was picked up for national distribution. I donated my appearance fees to start the Willowbrook Automotive Education Scholarship, funded by Brenda's restitution payments. It felt like poetic justice with a mechanical twist. 3 teenagers had already used it to attend technical college. Watching Diego Martinez, Linda's nephew, graduate with a degree in automotive technology meant more to me than any car show trophy I'd ever earned. My personal life had changed too. Sarah and I had been dating for 4 months, carefully and intentionally, discovering that a forensic accountant and a mechanic actually had a lot in common, especially when it came to fixing broken systems. The Camaro that started all of this had become a legend in classic car circles. Magazines dubbed it the car that defeated an HOA Karen. I'd received offers to sell, but some things aren't for sale, especially symbols of standing up to abuse and injustice. Every Sunday, I still drove to car shows, but now I brought neighborhood kids who wanted to learn about engines and restoration. Teaching Carlos Jr. how to adjust valve clearances while his father watched proudly was worth more than any commission Brenda ever stole. Our case had set a legal precedent cited in HOA fraud prosecutions across 3 states. Mike was invited to speak at legal conferences about fiduciary duty violations, and our documentation system was being taught in community organizing workshops nationwide. The state legislature even passed the Willowbrook Act requiring annual financial audits for all HOAs with budgets over $50,000. At the signing ceremony, we posed for photos with the governor. But the real victory was knowing others wouldn't have to endure what we did. Last month, I got an email from a veteran in Phoenix being harassed by his HOA. He said our story gave him the courage to fight back. That message meant more than any award. I've started consulting with other communities for free, teaching them how to document, organize, and reclaim their neighborhoods. Now Willowbrook holds monthly block parties where every household contributes food, stories, and laughter. Watching kids from different families play together while adults trade recipes and repair tips feels like rediscovering what suburbs were supposed to be. As I write this, I can hear Tom's lawnmower humming and smell Linda's weekend baking drifting through my garage window. These are the sounds of a healthy community, people choosing cooperation over control, kindness over fear. Share your Karen tales in the comments below. Your persistence might inspire someone else to stand up and fight back against their neighborhood tyrant. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true stories proving that justice still works when ordinary people refuse to back down. Next week, Karen tries to steal a veteran service dog and learns about federal crimes the hard way. From all of us here at HOA Stories, thanks for watching today's episode of HOA Karen Meltdown. If you enjoyed seeing neighbors stand together and karma deliver what's due, hit that like button and join us for the next unbelievable story.